Now we would start with the lumbar vertebrae. Lumbar vertebrae, there are 5 lumbar vertebrae. Now from L1 to L4 there are common structures, but in L5 there are some differences which I would tell. These are typical and this L5 is atypical. In every vertebrae you would get this atypical and typical. Body is bean shape. Body of lumbar vertebrae is bean shape and large transverse foramina. And spinous process is short. Now here in spinous process there is no bifid process. Bifid process in the spine was only in cervical vertebrae. In lumbar vertebrae it is not present, and size of body increases from top to bottom. In lumbar vertebrae, just keep in mind, size of body increases from top to bottom. Now the length of the body is greater anteriorly as compared to the posterior one. So this will contribute to the ventral convexity or the lumbar lordosis. Now I have not told you anything about lordosis and kyphosis in the vertebrae, but in general classification of the bones I have explained it. So please go and see the video so you would get what is the what is lordosis and kyphosis. Now length of the body is greater anteriorly. Length of the body is greater anteriorly as compared to the posterior one. So this will contribute to the ventral convexity. Ventral convexity, and this is also called as lumbar. This is called as lumbar lordosis of lumbar spine. Now vertebral foramina is large in shape than thoracic vertebrae. Now you can see here this is the vertebral foramina, which is looking like a triangular shape. This is vertebral foramina, which is larger than thoracic vertebrae but smaller than cervical vertebrae. If you want to see, you can make it a order. Cervical vertebrae has greater vertebral foramina than lumbar vertebrae. Lumbar vertebrae has greater vertebral foramina than thoracic vertebrae. Now pedicle in the lumbar vertebrae is short. Pedicle is short and strong, and its direction is towards back, and this attached to the body in such a way that there is a deeper inferior notch than the superior shallow notch. I will show you. Wait, see, this is a superior notch and this is inferior notch. Now pedicle are short, strong and directed backward, and these are attached to the body. See, this is a pedicle. It is attached to the body in such a way. Now here is a body. Okay, this is a pedicle. Now it is attached to the body in such a way that the superior facet, the superior notch is very shallow than the inferior notch. Now lamina are short, thick and broad plate and directed postomedially to form a spine. See, This is a lamina which is short, thick, and a broad plate which direct posterior medially. This is a body. Now lamina comes like this behind and it forms a spine. Now this spine is very short, thick, broad plate and directed posterior medially to form a spine. Now spine here is a quadrilateral shape which is blunt club shape. Now see here, this spine structure, how it looks like a club shape, quadrilateral and club shape. Transverse process is thin and slightly backward, which actually represent coastal element. Now, if you remember, I said in the thoracic vertebrae video, in T12 vertebrae, it has a accessory process and a mammillary process. Why? Because it subsequently follows the lumbar vertebrae. That's why it represent like it's just below the lumbar vertebrae. That's why it has that kind of a process. Now transverse process here is thin and slightly backward, which actually represent, now transverse process here actually represents what? It represents coastal elements and are homologous to ribs in thoracic region. Now in thoracic region, ribs were there which would attach to the coastal facet. Here the transverse process which depict as a coastal element which is homologous to the ribs in the thoracic vertebrae. Now the actual transverse process is in the form of accessory process. It is a bony elevation found in the posterior inferior. I will show you. Now the accessory process, the transverse process and mammillary process. The actual transverse process which is here, the actual transverse process, there is a small accessory process. There is a small accessory process here, see. It is a bony elevation found in the posterior inferior, posterior side, inferior side of transverse process. Where is found the accessory process? It is found on the posterior inferior side of transverse process. Here I have shown this is a transverse process. On its posterior inferior side is a accessory process. Now length of transverse process increases from L1 to L3. The length of transverse process increases from L1 to L3 and then it decreases and then it decreases. Okay, next. The distance between two superior articular facet is more than the distance between two inferior articular facet. The distance between two superior articular facet is greater than distance between two inferior articular facet. Now L5, why I said it is a different? Because its transverse processes are thick, short and pyramidal in shape. L5 transverse process is thick, short and pyramidal in shape. Spine is small, as I already told you. Spine is small. Body is large. Its height anteriorly large, and so it helps to form a lumbosacral angle. Anteriorly, its height is large, so it helps to form a lumbosacral angle, which is average of 120 degree. The distance between two inferior articular process is more than two superior articular process. There I told it is of facet. Don't make a mistake. I told about facet. Here I am telling about articular processes. Distance between two superior articular facet is more than two inferior articular facet. And here distance between two inferior articular processes is more than two superior articular process. This was a short video about lumbar vertebrae. I would continue this video by telling an information about Fawcett rule, which comes under lumbar vertebrae. It helps in identification of a given lumbar vertebrae. How to identify lumbar vertebrae? Now, to identify this, see the posterior side and join two articular processes, superior and inferior. Like I'll make it for L5. There is an imaginary shape called horizontal rectangle. Okay, this is a shape of it, and for L4 it is a square shape. For L3 it is vertical rectangle, and for L1 and L2 it is a trapezium. This Fawcett rule tells it helps to identify the given lumbar vertebrae. If someone gives you the lumbar vertebrae and tell which lumbar vertebrae it is, then you can just join the two articular processes, superior and inferior, make a shape of it. If it is a horizontal rectangle, then it is L5. If it is a square, then it is L4. Okay, if it is a vertical rectangle, then it is L3, and if it is a trapezium, then it is L1 and L2. Okay, this was a complete video of lumbar vertebrae. Next video I would post about the sacral vertebrae, so be with me. Just go through the video, keep the book in front of you, just see the images, labelings, and try to remember. Anatomy is all about imagination and keeping the structures in mind. That's it. Okay, thank you.